Hi, welcome to This is Getting Old. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and today I'm going to be talking to you about voting with Alzheimer's disease. And this issue came up in the podcast with my mom last week. We were talking about visitation in the skilled nursing facility, and they were trying to figure out how to get people in to help the residents there to vote, those that could. Then I got an email from a presentation that I had done a couple of weeks ago asking me, how do we help? It was actually presented as like an ethical dilemma. And then I've also been seeing more and more in the news around people with Alzheimer's disease or those that just live in long-term care settings being able to vote. So first of all, just wanted to kind of dispel some myths. Most people that are living with Alzheimer's disease actually do live at home because once you're diagnosed, it could take 10 to 20 years before you're very advanced in the disease and more towards end of life. And so, because everybody has a different trajectory, different timeline, it's really more of figuring out where that person is in the disease process. And less than 4% of older adults are ever going to end up living in a skilled nursing home. But around 60% of those that do end up in a skilled facility are there with some form of a cognitive impairment. But at the end of the day, the right to vote is a basic right and privilege in a representative democracy. And so it does, just because you have a cognitive impairment of some sort doesn't automatically disqualify or make it so that you aren't able to vote. So in the email that I sent back to my colleague, as a clinician, and I'm speaking to you today just from a clinical perspective, and lawyers may have a slightly different spin on it, but basically, when we're providing care to a person with Alzheimer's disease, they still may have decision-making capacity, but they may not necessarily have competency. And so decision-making capacity is the ability to decide, what are you ready to eat? Are you ready to take your shower? Is there something you'd like to do today? Those are easy decisions that people with early to middle Alzheimer's disease, they may be able to make those decisions. As this disease progresses, though, and you end up more in the moderate to late, and end stage, competency may become an issue. And competency is actually determined by a judge in individual states. And so if you are a legal guardian of someone who's already been deemed incompetent, in that instance, that person with Alzheimer's disease may or may not be able to vote. Certainly very advanced in the disease, they're not going to have the competency because basically what happens with Alzheimer's disease is that you're not able to execute multiple steps in any activity. And so if you think about all the different steps that it takes to vote, you first of all have to be able to register to vote. And if you've recently moved into an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility, you do need to change your address because you're gonna have to be able to verify your in-state residency. The other things you have to be able to do to vote is you need to know who the candidates are and what their backgrounds are and what their positions are on the issues. At least you should. The next thing is being able to either go through all the steps that it takes to request an absentee ballot, if that's allowed in your state, or are you able to arrange to get to a polling station, or are you able to participate in a mobile ballot program? And I think that's what my mom was talking about with, the skilled nursing facility, trying to figure out how to bring the mobile ballot program and make it accessible to the nursing home residents, and in this case, balanced with all of the COVID precautions. So again, there's nothing wrong with the mobile ballot program coming by, but again, that person has to be able to execute the final steps of marking their ballot, and then submitting the ballot. And so sometimes just not being able to do those steps is an indicator that it might not be something that this person living with Alzheimer's needs to do. However, if you have mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease and you need help completing your ballot, we need to be aware that there is this potential for coercion. And so I'm going to talk about some steps that you can use if you are asked to help someone to vote. or if you're the one that's asked to help your loved one to vote. So the first question is just asking the person if they want to vote. And sometimes someone will just give you an automatic answer of yes. But if they do say yes, then they do need to be given the opportunity to vote. If you have a situation where you're kind of advocating for the person with Alzheimer's disease and they have a family member or who says the person can't vote, that's not necessarily a reason. Just because someone else says that person can't vote, it's not necessarily a reason that they should not be allowed to vote. But the person does need to be able to mark their own ballot. But if they can't mark their own ballot, you have to be able to ask them who they would vote for, and the person needs to be able to communicate that to you verbally. Because if you're the one assisting that person, it's not your opinion or your thoughts and ideas or beliefs that need to be marked on that ballot. You're just filling in, kind of the functional fine motor skills of filling in that ballot. So if the voter asks you who they should vote for, that's definitely not that's not the place of the person who's helping with the vote. If they ask you questions about the different ballots and what their positions are, again, that's information that person should have been able to obtain on their own. And it's not really your place. You're really there as a proxy just to do the physical filling out of the ballot. But maybe they want to vote for someone that's not on the ballot. And you can certainly, if they can tell you the name of whoever it is they want to vote for, you can write that in for them, just like anybody can do with a write-in candidate. Maybe someone else says to you, well, I know my mom or dad and I know how they would vote, and so that's how I want you to fill out the ballot. Again, that's also not allowed because we are the proxy to execute the wishes of the person that we're helping. Maybe the person wasn't able to register to vote and not able to verify their in-state residency. So again, that step has to be completed well before they get to the polling station. Again, every state has their own requirements about what those deadlines are, and they have to be met. And then another issue could be maybe the person that you're asking if they want to vote, they may say, well, I don't know if I already voted. I can't remember if I voted already or if I did an absentee ballot. But again, you may be able to have people in the assisted living or the skilled nursing facility. They may know if the person requested an absentee ballot, or the person's family member may know. But again, we only get one vote. And so that's really going to be a little bit more of a trickier situation. And the final thing that I offered to the question about the ethical dilemma is that every facility has a ombudsman that's dedicated to helping to advocate for each of the residents and their rights. So if you witness a situation where you're not sure if the person with Alzheimer's disease, if they have another person that's trying to control their ability to access the vote or their ability to vote, the ombudsman is a good neutral party to help you work through some of that. And again, it often falls back to, what are the state rules? How is voting executed in each state? And, we do have to allow people with Alzheimer's disease the autonomy to vote if they have the decision-making capacity and they're competent to do that. And so those are my thoughts about voting with Alzheimer's disease, and feel free to drop me a line if you have any further questions. Thanks.
Thank you for joining me today for This is Getting Old. If you'd like to know more, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or a related topic you'd like to hear from me about, just let me know. Thanks.